Hi everybody, welcome back to Ilum Sabers. Today I'm going to be shooting a review for the Ultimate Works Pach Store Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 3 lightsaber. They released this pretty recently, I think over the summer, and I've been waiting to do a review on it. So without further ado, let's get into this review. So here's the saber. Here's the hilt. I mean, it looks great. First thoughts immediately, it is ridiculously heavy. I mean, it's not as heavy as like a Savi's Workshop lightsaber or some of the other legacy sabers. Some of those are pretty beefy. The Kylo Ren from the Disney parks is quite heavy. This isn't quite as heavy as that, but it is heavier than most custom sabers. That's because all of these pieces are, I believe, stainless steel. Not all of them, but a good chunk of them, especially the black sections. So just going to kind of go over from top to bottom. Immediately you've got the blade plug in there, which is really close to the 89 sabers. I think it's the same one that same style used by the Romans, actually, the Romans Inception Elite. You've also got your little rings around the blade plug. You've got a lip there, comes down. You've got two retention screws, both pretty small, not very noticeable, especially when you look at it from the angle of the clamp card. Going down a little further down the emitter, this section is probably the first thing that you might look at that might be a little off, especially compared to the 89 sabers and I believe the Romans, but especially the 89s. This is a little wider. The 89s is going to be a little bit thinner, and that is because Ultimate Works uses this kind of engineering solution where they widen the top of the neck and then screw it into the emitter. So you can see the copper underneath the sort of, I think, aluminum or brushed steel there. I think it's aluminum. So that's why it's a little wider, just so that they can have that. And it's really not a terrible solution, especially like with the 89 sabers, you've got that thinner portion here, but then your neck, you know, on the OWK3 was really prone to giving out because the threads were really thin. And so I think, given the choice between the two, I think I would rather go with this and have a little bit more longevity. Going down a little bit, you've got a good gold color here. I mean, this is really nice, really indicative of sort of the classic Master Replicas design. It's not exactly perfect, right? Because the Master Replicas has a bit of a darker copper here. So this is really close to like the Romans Inception, kind of the lighter, almost like more of a raw copper as opposed to like a darker copper. Going down though, this section is really great. I mean, I'll kind of move the glove behind it and you can see those grooves are really deep, right? Like they're appropriate. And then you've got the V cuts all through there, done really well. You've got the clamp section here, chrome. This color here is a kind of a lighter copper or maybe even a gold. So it should be like a darker copper, but I think it kind of matches this top one. So they've kind of used the same color copper or maybe even the gold. So that's a little bit of an inaccuracy there. At least compared to if you're comparing it to the Master Replicas, right? The screen used props, this is going to be completely different. So I'm really primarily comparing this to the Master Replicas limited edition that came out. That 89 took inspiration from, so, you know, I think it was from some of maybe the promo material that the 89 or that the Master Replicas sort of copied. The Inception took their inspiration from the Master Replicas. So that's really what I'm going off of because it's the most recognizable form of the prop, I think, even though it was hardly, if any, in the movie. Got the clamp card, looks really good, you know, appropriately sized, etchings on there, appropriately colored, really nice chrome finish all the way around. And something to note is going to be, these are your activation buttons on here. You've got your power and auxiliary. And as with all of the Pach store hilts, if you reverse the orientation of your chassis in the hilt, it'll reverse the switch setup. So if you start and you've got power and aux and you take your chassis out, turn it 180 degrees, then you'll end up with power and aux. So that's kind of a nice feature. You've got your gear section down here. That's appropriately sized again. The nice sort of thinner gear. Then you've got your kind of bulbous pommel at the end, kind of appropriately big, and it's again very heavy. You've got your cover tech. And just kind of looking at the profile of it, I mean, it looks really appropriate for as far as accuracy goes. Really the only inaccuracies that I've found with this hilt are going to be the coloring of this, the coloring of this, and the way that it screws into the emitter. But I mean, other than that, like it's on par as far as accuracy goes, I think. It really has a good look to it. It plays the part well. It's certainly not going to be as accurate to some of the prop shop stuff because it's not based on that. But I would say that it's as good of a product as the 89 Sabres, just because where it has some visual differences, generally those are sort of replaced, or the visual differences are generally kind of backed up by a superb practical performance. Not always, but generally with this one, that's kind of what I found. Going back over it, kind of comparing it to the master replicas, it is important to note that the configuration is right as far as where the chrome is. So this is kind of a brushed look, right? It's not very chrome, kind of an aluminum look. Might remind you of kind of the finish on the Graflex or Luke's Return of the Jedi, the Hero. And then you've got your chrome here, and you've got your chrome here. So that's as it should be. It's definitely a fingerprint magnet. I generally wear gloves with all my hilts just to keep the oils produced by your hands away from them, but with this one you really would want to, right? You don't want to just put your fingerprints all over it, smudge it up. It's kind of a work of art. Don't want to smudge up a work of art. But other than that, let's see. This is I'll go ahead and unscrew the pommel here, the pommel cap, that is. I do wish that they would have included a static pommel like they had with the Luke V1, just for display purposes, but they did not for this one. So if you go ahead and look in there, the light I've got really shows you well the connector system. And the chassis itself, actually, you'll see two screws, one on the top and one on the bottom. The chassis also has two screws. You just match up where the alignment of the screws go, and it goes right in. And I mean, again, even this cap is very heavy, right? I think it's steel. So this whole hilt is just very hefty. But it, you know, not in a sort of bulbous or you know, kind of inconvenient way. When you hold it, it really feels like, you know, General Kenobi from the Clone Wars would hold a weapon of this elegance and this heft. So it's quite nice, especially when you've got a blade attached to it. It really brings the balance closer to the, you know, the fulcrum of the hilt and the blade, as opposed to like some of the LGT sabers. You know, you've got a balance point that's kind of like way up there. So it's nice to have this balance to it. But yeah, I think, you know, overall, that's probably a pretty good overview of the hilt. Again, I really was comparing it most to the master replicas and the hilts based on the master replicas, so that, you know, if you want to look up some photos for yourself, you can look at the master replicas limited edition from like the 2000s when the films were coming out, so like after Revenge of the Sith. And you can probably find some of those on eBay for a few $1,000s. And then also I was comparing it to the more prominent hilts on the market that are based on the master replicas. So that excludes the SP Saber's High Ground. I know that his like special edition of that hilt did come with some of the master replicas inspired parts, but the main run of the SP Sabers was based on the prop shop, which had the brown neck. So I'm really comparing this to the master replicas hilt. I'm comparing it to the 89 Sabers hilt, which is based on the master replicas, and I'm comparing it to the Roman's Inception and Inception Elite. Those are also pretty prominent and based on that one as well. So I think that's probably a pretty good overview of it. Please like the video if you liked it, comment any questions you had, or if I missed anything going over this that you wanted to see, let me know. I'll try to, you know, let you know in the comments. Being able to see it in person is advantageous to, you know, answering questions like that. And then subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. I'll try to get some more of these reviews going. I know I've been fairly active recently, just trying to get a good amount of content flowing to sort of answer some questions and show off some hilts. So go ahead and leave you with that, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for joining me today on Elm Sabers.